welcome to a new episode of today's Youth. In this edition, we will be meeting with a young Egyptian student living and studying in Germany. Amina Helmi is studying international business in Germany. She's going to be telling us about her experience living and studying abroad, meeting people from a different culture and adapting to a new culture and being independent. Stay tuned after the short break.
Hi, Amina. Thank you for joining us here on Nile TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
It's our pleasure also. Amina, you're studying international business. Would you tell me why did you choose this field, the major field of study in specific?
So before I started studying, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. And I felt like studying international business would give me a wide array of options after I graduate. So I get to study a little bit of everything, a bit of marketing, a bit of business law. So I felt like it would open my option, like it would give me more options after I graduate. So yeah, that's why I chose a specialty of finance and accounting because I don't know, I just like it more.
Right. Well, you also have some work experience or internship in finance and marketing. Would you tell me how did you benefit out of this internship program?
Yeah, so in most German universities, I study in Germany. In most universities, you are required to have a 6-month training program. That's for all students. So I got the chance to do mine here at the National Training Academy in Cairo. And it was a really good experience because I got to put what I learned in school into reality, and I got to experience the work life while I'm still a student. So that was a really nice experience for me. Getting to be part of both departments was really cool. I got to see 2 different types and natures of work. So it was a really good experience as a student.
So you're studying in Germany. Would you tell me how are you benefiting of your how did you benefit from your experience studying abroad, living abroad in a different culture? Was it easy to adapt in this new culture?
Right. So as you said, it's a huge learning experience when you travel abroad for university. The biggest challenge I had was learning German. So because I wasn't at a German school here, so that was my biggest challenge. But you learn so much when you are exposed to different cultures, when you have to live on your own and you have to manage your own time. You have to basically do everything on your own, cook, clean, as I said before, manage your time, exams. So it was a really big learning opportunity for me. It was the first time I was on my own, so I got to like create that own balance for myself.
Yeah. What about meeting new people, different people from a different culture? How did you adapt? Was it easy to adapt?
At first, it was a bit difficult, of course. I always found myself going to the Egyptians or the Arabs because they were like their culture is more similar to mine. But then afterwards, in my university, there are so many international students. People come from everywhere in the world. So like the freshman activities and all the activities we have on campus made that a bit easier. And now, like most of my friends are either from Eastern European countries or from South American countries. So it's really cool having friends from all around the world.
And what are you planning later on when you finish, when you get your bachelor degree in international business? Are you planning to come back to work here in Egypt, or are you planning to live abroad and work abroad?
My original plan was always to come back to Egypt after I finish. If I could get a bit of working experience after I graduate in Europe or maybe somewhere else, that would also be cool. But like the
Mm-hmm.
long-term plan is definitely to come back. Like I don't think I could live away from my country and family, especially my family, for that long.
Yeah, well, Amina, also you have some extracurricular activities. You participated in Model United Nations. How far did you learn out of this experience in terms of research and presentation skills?
So definitely doing Model United Nations was a very big learning opportunity for me. I did that in high school, so I was always interested in it and I was always planning on doing it when I traveled for university. This year we were supposed to go to the National Model United Nations conference in New York, but unfortunately that was cancelled due to COVID, so we didn't really make it to the part of actually going. But throughout
Yeah.
the preparation journey, we did a lot of discussions and simulations and, like you said, research. We had to write position papers about our delegation and the topics that were at hand. So it was really interesting. We got to cover a lot of the recent problems that we face around the world. And we were representing the delegation of Rwanda. So we also represented Rwanda's perspective on all the different topics that arise around the world. So it was really interesting. I got to make a lot of new friends. We even traveled to Berlin together for like a simulation activity where we were like having a mock conference or a mock debate. So yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, so you met, of course, new people through this experience. And how did it add to you in terms of public speaking skills?
Yeah, so throughout, like I was saying, throughout the simulation we had in Berlin, we each had to give a speech or prepare a speech and give it. And one of the skills that they were making us work on was giving a speech without any notes or without having a paper in front of you. So you had to like write down your thoughts, prepare everything, and then go up and speak for 2 to 3 minutes without
Mm-hmm.
any piece of paper. So that was a skill I learned throughout that time, like speaking without any reference or without any notes. And we all did that
Yeah.
together and gave each other feedback. So that was also really cool.
Yeah, great. Also, you participated in the Model Arab League also, right? That was
That
also
was in
another
high school.
experience.
Yeah. So in high school, we also had a Model United Nations conference, and I had the privilege of being the president of the Arab League. And during that time, I was the one who had to prepare the topics that the delegates were going to debate or talk about. I had to write like a research paper, and basically I was delegating the forum, like saying when you can speak now, or like
Yeah.
delegating the
Yeah, it's an interesting experience actually. And in the MUN, you were in the General Assembly, actually, Security Council and General Assembly, right?
Yeah, I was at university. I was, as I said, representing Rwanda in the third General Assembly. So that was the social and cultural and humanitarian forum, and these are more of my interests. So that's why I chose that forum.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you also took part in some volunteer work during school years, I think, social work, like participating in collecting food, clothes, and money for donations. So, how do you see the importance of community participation and social work?
Right. So throughout high school, that was a really big part of my experience. In my high school, they really focused on that. It was like a very big part of our life. We had to do a lot of social work. For example, like Ramadan packaging and prepare meals throughout Ramadan, and also throughout Eid, like prepare gifts for children. Um, so it was a really nice experience. You get to learn a lot. You get to see a lot, and you're exposed to all the different problems that we face in our society. You get to experience dealing with people of all different social classes. So it really enriches your background and it enriches your knowledge.
Mhm. Right. Well, moving on to hobbies and interests, you also have some special hobbies. I think scuba diving, reading, traveling, cooking, and playing tennis. And tell me more about these interests and hobbies.
So scuba diving was an interest that came up around 5, 6 years ago. I went on a diving trip with school and I loved it. I loved everything about it and I loved being underwater and disconnected from the entire world. So I decided then to get my scuba diving license so I could dive professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it was honestly one of the best decisions I made. And every time I get the chance to go diving, it's a whole new experience.
Yeah.
So I got that from school. Um, Reading and cooking are just some of my pastimes, especially when I traveled and I had to cook for myself. Like I got to become more creative.
In
Um,
cooking, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. And playing tennis is like that's the sport I play. I train almost 2 or 3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it. Honestly, I feel like I get all my energy out when I'm playing, so I really like
Yeah.
it.
Right. You
And
also go ahead.
sorry, traveling was something that was easily attainable, especially living in Europe because everything is close by. You can travel using the train or the bus. It's a lot easier than in Egypt. Everything is closer. You can travel anywhere, anytime. So that was something I got to do a lot. And I think it's one of the biggest perks of living in Europe.
Right. Moving on to another activity that you participated and shared in is the Ministry of Immigration program for Egyptian youth abroad. Tell me about the visits that they planned for you and the connections and relations that you were able to make with other youth.
So
I
that
mean,
was
through this program.
right, of course. When I first came back to Egypt last March, because of COVID, everyone who came back because of COVID was a bit down during that time. Like they weren't sure when they were going back. So when they contacted us, telling us about that program, and Minister Nabila Mokram started planning or initiating visits for us, it was mind blowing. It was a really cool experience. And for me, the one thing I got most out of it was making friends. I feel like when you travel abroad, you don't really get to meet as much Egyptians as other people do when they're in university here. So for me, meeting people who study everywhere around the world was really cool. We got to go on a lot of visits. So, for example, we went to El Galala University and we went to El Galala City, and there we saw the university. And that was a
Yeah.
really cool trip. We had a lot of fun. We rode the telefric and we had lunch there. And we also got to see the university and the different majors they offer and all that. We also got to go to Abdin Palace
Right.
after they renovated it. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. We've
Definitely.
also been to different ministries like the Ministry of Information Technology and Communication. We've also been to the National Council for Women. So it was a really cool experience getting to meet high authorities in the country and getting to speak and ask questions to ministers. And for example, Dr. Maya Morsi, who's the president of the National Council for Women, like for us as students to get that opportunity to speak and like say our concerns and all that, it was really cool. And for me, like the most exciting part was when we got to meet Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
uh, that was, like we got to go and we got to ask him questions, and any concerns we had we got to speak up about, so it was really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a great experience, definitely meeting with officials and seeing different touristic sites here in Egypt. Maybe you haven't got the chance to see those places before, like Abdin Palace, and
Yeah,
it's a great experience, of course.
I wouldn't have
And
gotten the
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying I wouldn't have gotten the chance to see it otherwise. So
Yes, definitely, sure. Well, you're currently also interning at the National Training Academy, right?
yeah,
Tell me
exactly.
more about this experience and how far are you learning and enjoying this training?
So as I was saying before, in German universities, you have to intern somewhere for 6 months. So that's where I decided to do it. And I got the chance of trying different departments. So I did finance first, and then I did marketing. They have a very different nature of work. So finance work is very, I wouldn't say rigid, but there isn't a lot of room for creativity. It's also a bit more sensitive when you're dealing with financial documents. So, but I got to learn a lot about, for example, the financial terminology in Arabic, because since my studies were always in English, so it was a really cool new learning
Mm-hmm.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Marketing department, I got a chance to unleash my creativity a bit more. I learned also about like media, video production in general. So overall, it was a really nice opportunity. People there are relatively young. There's a really nice working environment. So I'm very thankful I got to do it there.
Mm-hmm. Right. So definitely you're meeting a lot of obstacles and challenges living alone, living abroad. Tell me how does each difficulty you pass through give you more strength and persistence and perseverance to reach your goals?
Mhm. Definitely, my biggest challenge is being away from my friends and family here. Like living on my own without my parents and my siblings, it's very difficult. But what keeps me going, honestly, is every time I come back and I see them and I see how proud they are of everything I've achieved, it motivates me to keep going.
Yeah.
Another challenge, as I said before, was the cultural barrier. At the end of the day, the German culture is a bit different than ours. I got to learn a lot from it, but it was hard adapting at first.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the friends I made there and the friends I now consider my family that I made there definitely make it easier. They're always by my side. So
Mm-hmm.
that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the role of youth towards their countries? I mean, you're learning abroad, you will come back to Egypt one day and you will be working here. Um, what do you think is the role of youth to see the future development and sustainable development?
Definitely, I feel like it's those who had the opportunity to travel abroad, it's definitely their responsibility to come back and try to implement everything they learn towards benefiting their country. Because at the end of the day, if we don't, then who will? And like
Mm-hmm.
everything we learned um, after being on those visits and after meeting all those ministers and authority figures in Egypt, you get to see that there's room for you to implement your ideas and there's room for you to
Mm-hmm.
like say what you have to say about everything. There's always room for you to be more creative. So it's definitely our responsibility to try to benefit the country, even in the smallest way possible. Like even if you have a small business idea and you feel like it's gonna make life a bit smoother, then it's definitely your responsibility to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you think that the challenges facing youth around the world are the same? I mean, in other words, do youth have the same common challenges all over the world?
I think after meeting a lot of people throughout the event of the ministry, I would say they're similar. Like they have it's the same umbrella. Maybe the technicalities are a bit different, but overall, I think youth have the same issues of trying to find their place in the world, trying to prove themselves, trying to say like, "Hey, I'm here. I have an idea and I can do it." And just because I'm younger doesn't mean I can't. Those who definitely travel abroad have similar issues of adapting to different cultures, of being away from home, of trying like to find that balance of one while being on their own. So I think they're, even though it could definitely vary from person to person, but it's under the same umbrella, I think.
Hmm. Right. What do you think is the importance of holding different events, gathering youth together from different places, like the conferences that took place here in Egypt, youth forums, international youth forums, and so on? How important are such gatherings for the youth to get together, to change experience, to create a bond among youth from different cultures?
I think it's, like you said, it's definitely important for their exposure. I feel like when you're exposed to more cultures and you're exposed to different people and different ideas all the time, it makes you a more accepting person. It makes you a more understanding person. When you've only seen the same thing your entire life, it's hard for you to adapt to people's different mentalities. And I feel like that's the strength of the youth today, that
Mm-hmm.
everyone, especially because of social media and now a lot of people are traveling abroad for education, people are exposed all the time to different mentalities, and that just, and it enriches them as a person, and it also makes them more accepting, more aware. When you're exposed to different people and cultures, you're also exposed to different ideas, so it broadens your circle of thinking. I think it's really
Yes.
important.
Yeah. In light of this, if you see yourself before traveling and after traveling and living abroad on your own and being independent, what would you say?
The difference, I think I'm definitely a more
Mature.
responsible, yeah, more mature, more responsible. Um, like, as I was saying before, I basically do everything on my own when I'm traveling. So knowing that you're capable of that, I think is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my mentality also changed a little bit. I've become more open and accepting of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So, what would you tell youth about accepting the people, accepting the other, accepting different people from different cultures with different mentalities?
I would say definitely you don't have to accept everything on yourself, but you have to accept people the way they are. Like, if a person does something differently than you or thinks about something differently than you, then you have to respect that person as a person. Maybe you don't want to have these ideas, or you don't have that mentality. That's fine, because you're also your own person and they're their own person. You just have to respect them and give them the space to be who they are, and so that they can give you the space to be who you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And who is your greatest support? I mean, is it your family, your mom, your dad, your friends? Who have supported you?
Definitely my family, my parents and my siblings have always been my greatest support. My friends have also always been my greatest support. So I honestly don't know where I'd be without them.
Hmm. And so you're back now for due to the COVID, of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic. You work online from here from Egypt, right? You're
So
continuing your
sorry
education
to,
online.
yeah. So last semester was my internship semester, so I was just working. I had no
Mm-hmm.
lectures.
Mm-hmm.
This semester is gonna start on the 1st of March,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna start my online lectures again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
Right.
honestly really.
How do you see online learning, education online?
I think definitely education can't stop because of COVID, so it's a good alternative. But for me, it's really difficult. Like, it's very hard to convince a college student to get up and get out of bed and be focused on a laptop screen all day. Like, it's, my eyes hurt. It's just
Yeah.
tiring all day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you prefer
But I mean,
interaction, real life interaction.
definitely, yes. And I miss like the small conversations you have with people before class. I miss like going to the cafeteria with my friends. So, but I
Socializing
mean,
and so.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, your education can't stop. So, what other options do we have? It's
Mhm. What are the pros and cons, in your opinion, of education online?
so the pros for me are um, definitely waking up later. So now I don't have to wake up as early to get
Very
ready. I can
early.
just
Yeah,
wake up
definitely.
5 minutes before class and I'm ready.
Yes,
Um,
sure.
the difficulties, especially in Egypt, sometimes the internet connection isn't always the best. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard to manage, like, especially because I have two other sisters in school. So all of us like managing our classes at the same time in the same house, it gets a bit tough sometimes.
Online, all of you online. Yeah,
Yeah. So and
right.
also I have a big brother, so his classes are always so loud all the time.
Oh, right. Well,
But
right, Amina. Finally, my last question to you: what are your plans? What are your dreams for the future? How do you see the future on the personal and the career level?
um, career-wise, I'm honestly not sure, but I definitely know I want to do something that is gonna make a change, especially here in Egypt. Like that's why I decided to travel in the first place, to gather as much knowledge as I can and come back and implement it here. So I'm not really sure which field I want to work in, but I know I definitely want to do something that makes a difference or helps this country in any way. On a
Yeah.
personal, like, yeah, maybe do my master's after I graduate and then start working. We'll see how it goes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, all the best of luck. And thank you very much for joining us here on Nancy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So that was Amina Helmi, an Egyptian student studying in Germany. Living and studying abroad is a unique experience. Amina told us about this experience, how she adapted to a new culture, meeting new people from different cultures, adapting and becoming independent. Another success story in our program. Stay tuned for more success stories on today's youth on Nile TV International.